Now it's time to have a look at the Greatwood hurdle, which is run on Sunday. Now this is a bit more difficult to come up with the winners because there's a number of entries for the race that may not well take up the race itself on Sunday, but we're hoping that we can dissect it and pick out the obvious runners in the race and find out where the value is. And we must start with the head of the weight, Vanitor, which is trained by Nicky Henderson. Matt, you put a line for this because it was 11 stone 12. I made the point that 4 horses had won under the top weight, but you still don't like it.
Well, when we're looking at the price of the horse, I just think it's ludicrous. This horse has got, just to remember, this is a handicap. This is not, we're not running off levels here. It's got a mark of 147, which it quite rightly deserves for obviously run third in a Grade 1 over 2 mile and half a furlong. I think it's worth pointing out before that at Doncaster, not forgetting that was a 2 mile 3.5 furlong race. It wasn't 2 miles when he was 8 to 11 favourite that day, and he came off the bridle about 2 furlongs from home, and at Kempton he was beaten over the 2 miles round there. I've got a feeling this horse is a 2.5 miler. I think that he hasn't really got that speed. I think he's very vulnerable off his weight. For me, he would have to have a stone in hand, so you're talking about he'd be getting towards champion hurdle standard. Both his wins, don't get me wrong, the race at Doncaster was spoken, he's 8 to 11, gone too far, ran in that race and underperformed with Alan King's, didn't go on for the rest of the season, so you take him out of the race, he'd be absolutely nothing, and he would have been.
And the thing is, Nicky Henderson's got a lot of novices already come out, and we had one today, Sign of Victory's come out, could have had Sign of Victory in this race. The Supreme Novice form to me is very strong, very strong.
I agree. I haven't spent 14 hours on the race like Matt here, but but no, not many of these appealed, and I thought off top weight he had a cracking chance. He is in the champion hurdle. It's a champion hurdle entry. His form in the Supreme Novices stood up to me, and I think he's giving weight here to lesser rivals. He's giving weight to handicappers basically. And
let's not forget horses like Rooster Booster won this 11 stone 12. Menora,
good horses.
Yeah. Detroit City.
It's hard. But then if you look at the breeding map, I've just picked it up. 1 mile 7 dam winner, and also there's a 2 mile chaser in the family as well.
Yeah, and also 2.5 miles, 2 cents.
There's plenty of scope, and I do like the horse.
Do you think 4 to 1's a fair price as we say?
Why did he? I mean, that race at Kempton, first time out, I know he didn't jump well, but even from the mistake he made at the last, he did not have that race won. He did not have the speed round Kempton. And last time at Cheltenham, we're talking a Supreme, which they went a real good time for. Closing stages, he looked very much like a stayer, and for me, he was plodding up the hill at the one pace.
I think you and I are watching a different race, man.
Yeah.
Sergeant Restless looked like a one to me for a start. But anyway,
what we must say about the horse is obviously it's coming for a lot of support, and I think the one factor is Barry Geraghty at the moment is still up in the air, but it looks like he's leaning towards choosing to ride in this race rather than being Ireland to ride in a Group 1 on the favourite in a Group 1 that should probably beat Hurricane Fly. So
Hurricane Fly runs definitely.
I don't know off the top of my head, but as far as I'm aware, it's likely to.
Let's move on because there are a number of horses. We haven't got much time, but we have got a horse here in Baltimore Rock with Davy Pipe.
Yeah, Imperial Cup winner on soft ground, so should the conditions get any softer, won't mind it for him. He's obviously a Grade 3 winner, so he's definitely got the class for this sort of race. Last seen in Ascot in a Grade 2. Mark of 140, I think that's probably about right for him, and I think he's vulnerable.
He's been running on flat tracks. He hasn't really been running on a track like this. It's an ask on that score, I think.
It's really difficult unless you've been to Cheltenham to actually describe how different it is to something like Aintree. It's very Cheltenham to me is very testing. It's a top track for top
if you
horses.
Ever can, I thoroughly recommend to everybody to try and walk the track at some stage because it gives you a real. It doesn't.
You walked all the way around, have you, Sam?
Not quite all the way, but most of the hill. But it gives you a real good perspective, and I don't think TV even does it justice because it doesn't. No. It doesn't show it, and it's only when you go along you really see the inclines and you realise. But this is a great race. I think it's fantastic to see good racing on Sunday as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, two Willie Mullins horses that are sort of near the top of the market: Dane King and. Remind me the other one, Clondor Warrior. I favour more Dane King than Clondor Warrior, considering the way we're in the market.
I was a bit surprised actually to see Clondor Warrior backed today. It's as short as 6 to 1 now in most places, and that's down from 8s, 9s earlier in the week. So someone's fancying it.
I can't have a 1 mile 7 furlong winner on the flat winning a 2 mile race.
But he's been running in 50 grand handicaps. He's potentially very well treated over hurdles.
I think that's the angle, but the only thing I would say is we don't know whether Ruby's going to stay over to ride on the Sunday or not? And probably not, I'm guessing, if the fly's out. So, I'm just coming back to Barry Geraghty giving up that Grade 1 ride. I find it hard to get away from that.
See, I think this is very overplayed because as Barry Geraghty, obviously they got the inside from Henderson, but obviously it is still an opinion as a jockey whatever to ride. He's been at a bit of a 2 in 8 what to ride there, so you don't quite know what's happening on the phones and one thing and another. So I think the angle is just saying, well, we've got to back it because he's decided that. I think it's going to be over.
I wouldn't back it blind on that. I think it's
if anyone thinks that value around those prices,
fours is your best price.
Ludicrous price.
When's it a backable price?
When's it backable? About 12s.
12s.
I'd consider it then.
This is being recorded, Matt. We talked about John Joe O'Neill having John Spirit. He's also got a couple in here, but Goodwood Mirage looks the one likely. People who weren't impressed with that form, and it is fair to say on the home turn that all the horses were close together, but if you re-watch it, it does get sort of behind horses and looks like, being squeezed out and then runs on under McCoy. This cost Connections an awful lot of money, 380 grand to be precise. Where do we go with Goodwood Mirage?
Yeah, I've got quite an opinion about him. He's like a boy that's turned a man this year. Last year his jumping was a problem. Hold him back.
Slowly but surely.
He was 95 rated on the flat, but last season as a juvenile, his jumping was a big problem. Then I watched him very carefully at Weatherby. It was like looking at a different horse. He's grown. He's looking a lot more scoping than he did last year, and he travelled through there like an absolutely dream. And McCoy hit the front. It goes down in the form book that he's only won a neck. He idled all the way from the last. He almost got there too soon. The second horse, Lightning Rod's been out and won 7 lengths in the Class 3 company since. The fifth horse has been out and won really well. Secret Stream won at Weatherby. Without a doubt, he's well handicapped, and there still could be more to come, and I think he's a massive player in this race.
I think Goodwood Mirage is as well.
I'm not convinced. I think last year they sent him, they sort of panicked a bit, sent him straight over hurdles as he was still a colt, and I'm never sure that running colts over hurdles is a great idea. I don't think he enjoyed it. He seemed to improve £20 on his comeback.
We had that one with Irish
Royal Irish Hussar, absolutely, yeah.
But then
gelded him twice, found £20. We've got to go up another £10 here.
Back on the flat for a run as well. I find the mix and match campaign tends to the only horse I can really pick out that does well at his overturn, and I don't like it. I don't like the profile, and it's just not for me.
Okay.
But that's not to say it can't win.
Garden of Victoire is probably aimed more at chasing down the line, and I did notice that Philip Hobbs did mention towards the end of last season that it would be a novice chase campaign, so I'm quite surprised that they've got a 2-mile hurdle start for the horse, and maybe it's just a prep run for chases further down the line. Yeah,
well, we've already seen this horse this season. He came back at Aintree over 2 miles on a flat track, which is definitely against him. He's definitely a 2.5 mile, all his best form he's shown at that at Chapman over the distance. Again, it's another horse in this race. I'll be saying it a lot. We've got a lot of horses that want a lot further in this race, and
which makes the top weight even more valued.
But with Grand a bit, and not only that, I think the handicapper knows plenty about him, and from a handicap point of view, he's probably on his mark, got a few pound to play with, but not much at all, so I couldn't have him.
Went off favourite though in that race at Aintree against some good horses. When you think Hawkeye, who won it and was hugely overpriced in that race, we mentioned it actually on the Saturday show. That horse was. It was obviously someone liked it, and
he's not really progressing, is he? He's not really progressing. He's going to win a 2.5 mile novice chase. I agree with you.
Yeah, but I don't like that when we're thinking about we don't know which direction they're going to go in. Taking in a race like this, you probably want to be fully tuned up and aiming for. I think.
Okay, there's another one that ran last time when we talked about it. Class 3 at Sandown, not the form to win this, but Exitas. Another one that won comfortably, but not the class to win this, surely.
No, and I'm more concerned that we haven't seen him since last November. After all that good form, not what the problem was. He's obviously got plenty of form on soft ground, but that was a Class 3 one, and I'd be very surprised if he's got the class for a race like this.
Yeah, problems, didn't he? He had problems with bleeding, and Phil Middleton, he markets his product, stop horses that do that, and he got 3 good wins out of him, but this is a bit of a step up, I think.
There are a couple of interesting ones that, I'm with the favourite, but Baradari at the prices, and I've seen it's been well back. I'll be getting Sam's prices in a minute. Third to Sign of Victory, first run back. That to me is pretty good form, and I can see it running a good race, especially if it rains. fifth in the Fred Winter.
Absolutely, this is my selection for the race. I think that's real good form behind Signs of Victory. Dalawan, Ted Spread was back in 4-5 lengths. I think this is real strong form. I think he's ran to a mark of 151 last season. All the juveniles were taking a little bit of a knock into, and they weren't very good. That wasn't my impression at all. I thought he ran a tremendous race behind Hawkeye in the Fred Winter. Has obviously been out and franked that form with Grand Louette that we were just speaking about a moment ago. What was interesting about that Fred Winter's race, he did get shuffled back a long way. Again, a horse that I'd probably appreciate further, but any soft in the ground he will appreciate. I remember him watching him win on heavy ground at Newby as a juvenile. I do think that he has got a lot in hand of his mark. So I have him as a 151 rated horse with a mark of 134, and I think it's really interesting. Obviously having a bit of good form around Cheltenham always helps as well.
I didn't dislike him. I thought
I can see that. I can see that horse if it running doing pretty well. Cat Gary's another one that run well at Cheltenham. Obviously, if these run, they are sort of being backed on the outside market.
I was going to say, do you want me to give you some of the prices?
Please. Yeah.
So the one we were just talking about there, Badari, at 25-1 best priced in the marketplace, but as short as 16s, 14s actually somewhere. So you're right, this is obviously coming for a little bit of support, and 25s will look big in a race that will pay 4 each way at the moment, possibly on the day even as well. Yeah, we've mentioned that the front of the market is pretty obvious. Nicky Henderson's runner is going to be well backed on the day, I suspect, as well. If Barry Geraghty does come over 4s at the moment, will it get much shorter before the off? Probably.
I mean, I think it's important to stress that if they've got it at 4-1 5 days before, and like the Cheltenham Gold Cup, if they've got favourites 6-1 5 days before, no doubt it'll be the same price. It will drift.
You think it's going to drift? You think it's going to go the other way?
Well, I just think that sometimes bookmakers they're very cagey.
Depends what comes out, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also horse makers, if you see it at Cheltenham, you see a price, you think, oh, a fabulous price, but on the day, it's bigger.
Clondon Warrior's been the one for money today. I mean, this is as short as 9-2 in places now, and may even challenge favouritism, which is shocking me, because only yesterday you could get 8s, and it's 11-2 across the board and shorter. There's plenty of others. Cat Gary 16s. It could be a big price for a trainer in form.
How about Pearl Swan?
Pearl Swan's going down there, 25-1 best price.
I mean, he was a really interesting prospect, wasn't he? He's not been seen since winning down the field in the Betfair Hurdle 2016.
See, I often find that sometimes there's something lurking. I mean, if you don't fancy the favourite at home, go for the ones that are being backed, because they're the ones.
I've got one lurking that I think we've got to talk about, and it's probably one of the best horses that you'll ever see if you like watching markets. Is Regal Encore. Anti-Honeyball. AP usually takes this. The only time it's run at Cheltenham, it's come second in the bumper to Briar Hill. Okay, it's a different kettle of fish over hurdles, but you know the horse will go okay here, and it's been a talking horse for 2 seasons now.
I think you just said it there. It's been a talking horse for 2 seasons. They're coming back for 2.5 miles to 2 miles. That have a direct effect. But he has a talking horse. But big ass coming into a race like this. I really do think you need to have form going into this race.
Yeah, but you see at Chepstow in the mud, a lot of horses don't handle that. So you could come out of the race and win a better race.
I'm just always interested to see how the bumper form stacks up. Obviously, Briar Hill up until Cheltenham was doing a very good job in that particular bumper, and it's been beaten at silly prices before, I know, but I still think it's a genuine horse.
Okay, so the Valley Rater.
Yeah, I was really torn here between Goodwood Mirage and Baradari, but being the Valley Rater, I have to be Baradari.
Baradari.
I think Matt's talking nonsense. I think Vanito's a cracking bet, even at 4-1, so happy to stick with the top weight.
Yeah, and I would say Nicky Henderson's brought out a couple and could have had a couple in this race.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's the class.
The only thing is, never won this race. That's an interesting fact. And Nicky Henderson's never won this race. I hope I'm right. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. No one doubt. Someone on Twitter saying he's talking a load of rubbish, but I'm pretty certain
they are saying that. But that's about other things. That's about your John Spirits tip. Yeah. No, I like Nicky Henderson's horse here, but I actually can see Matt's point now. It's getting shorter and shorter, and it's not an attractive price.